Welcome to the Thrive Today podcast. I'm Natalie Born. I'm your media host for Thrive Today and the founder of Innovation Meets Leadership. We are a platform for women who lead and believe. And today we are so excited to have Dr. Sam Chand back with us. He is no stranger to the Thrive Today platform. And I'm just so excited to talk to him not only about some of his current projects, but even a brand new recent project that we're going to talk about at the end. So stay to the end and hear about his new book that's coming out, that's already out, that's released. Can't wait for you to hear about that. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Sam Chan.
What a joy to be with you again, Natalie, and a shout out to Pastor Colleen Rouse.
Yeah, well, she loves when we have you on because you are such an encourager to this platform and to the women who listen. And I was sitting down to prepare for our time today, and I was reading one of your most recent articles that's in the Thrive Today digital magazine. And one of the things you were talking about is leaders need a clear voice and a clear vision. And I couldn't agree more. I love that premise. You talk about hope, faith, and love in a season of change. And here's what we know as we look at the world and the economy. Change abounds. That is the only constant is change. So I would love to talk about in your view, what does that mean to have a voice that is clear and sound in the times that we're living in right now?
That's a great question, Natalie. The challenge is a lot of leaders, unfortunately, underplay the impact of their voice. Their voice is so critical. The nuances of the voice, the tonality of the voice, the so what needs to happen at this time, especially in the challenging times we are in right now, is high doses of empathy. I don't think it works when you say, I know how you feel, because nobody feels how you feel. Or I had a similar experience. No, you did not have a similar experience. And whenever someone is saying something and you tell a related story that happened with you, you're really devaluing their story. So empathy, a lot of listening, but also the balance between certitude, certainty, and acknowledging the questions you might have as well. If you come across as somebody who has no questions, that kind of takes away from your credibility. Clarity is something I struggle with. Have you not noticed, doesn't matter how clear you are, you'll still be misunderstood?
Absolutely.
And so clarity is something I struggle with. And I think it's important at this time for leaders to have a language of togetherness, inclusive words like we, us, ours. Those are the kind of words you want to use to make sure that it's not you and us and them and they. It is, words have a way of creating distance, or they can also create togetherness. So just keep asking yourself, are my words bringing people together? Am I acknowledging what they are going through without inserting myself in it? Yeah, you're absolutely right. The voice of hope and faith and love is just so critical.
Wow. Well, I love that you incorporated into your article James 3, which talks about the power of the tongue and how it can spark a forest fire, which we know, right? We've seen it happen in business. We've seen it happen with leaders. But I even think about how weighty leaders' words are to other people. And typically, when someone has had, let's call it a tongue lashing from a leader, it's something that they don't forget for years. They can recall it 10, 15, 20 years from now. So when we think about teams that we lead and people that we work with, the power of our words, I think, becomes even more important, not just as believers, but also as leaders as well.
That's a huge question, Natalie. Let me see, two, three things coming to my mind. Let me just kind of put it out there. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. I just love the way Thrive Today is helping so many, especially ladies in our life. I'm surrounded by ladies in my life, and thank you for adding value to them. Ladies meaning my wife, my daughters, my granddaughter, and so on and so forth. Words have pictures. Every word that we say has a picture. If I say to you, I was at the cafe, you picture a cafe in your mind. I was shopping, a shop comes to your mind. I said to you, I went out for Mexican dinner. Well, all of a sudden, either a burrito or a fajita or tostada, something shows up in your imagination. If I say to you, hey, I bought a new car, some kind of car comes into your mind. So words have pictures attached to them. But here's the thing, everyone has a different picture. If I say to you, house, the word house, everyone's got a different picture in their mind. If I was to say to you vacation, everyone's got a different picture in their mind. Hence, be careful of the words you use, but because words have pictures, take time to explain the picture. The second thing that comes to my mind is when you have an organization, internal language is different from external language. You cannot use the same language that you use in your staff meeting with your clients, customers, members, attendees. Those are different languages because, again, like I said, when you use certain words inside your organization internally, there are different pictures that go along with that. But there's a different picture that comes up in the minds and the hearts and the visuals, the brains of people who are listening to you outside. The last thing comes to me is, I've got so many thoughts, but I'm just distilling them. The last thing that comes to me, Natalie, is it is better for someone to disagree with me than for me to give them such ambiguous messaging that they can come up with their own conclusions.
Wow.
I have messed up there so many times. You don't have time to tell the stories, and I don't want to throw myself under the bus again and again and again, except to say, I would much rather you be mad at me, Natalie. I'd much rather you vehemently disagree with me, but at least you know exactly what I'm saying and what you're disagreeing with. Rather for me to use such friendly, loving, kind words that leaves you to draw your own conclusions. And now I will come back and clean it up and say, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was. And that is, to me, has become, James 3 talks about, the sparkling of fire. But I think sometimes we don't spark a big fire, but we have the simmering flame, a spark that if somebody blew on it just the right way, it could turn into that. So just be careful with how clear you are. And yeah, I'd much rather be mad at me than to leave with your own conclusions.
Yeah, that's so good, and I think we don't talk about that enough because oftentimes maybe we're too soft in our language and we're not being clear enough about what we really mean, and so we leave with 2 different pictures in our mind, and we never, combine those pictures into the outcome that we actually want, and I think that's a really powerful thought for all of us. Am I being clear enough? I love Brené Brown, she says, "Clear is kind," right? So, we've got to be kind by being more clear. So you emphasize, cohesive culture. And I want to talk about this because I believe that there are practical steps that we can take as leaders to build unity, to build trust, even when things are tense. And we're kind of starting to dip our toe into that. So sometimes tension's not a bad thing. Sometimes conflict is not a bad thing. So how do we actually stay practical when maybe tensions are high and we're trying to build out some of these concepts that you're talking about? Like I need to get more clear, but it might make you angry, but I need to do that so we can get to the other side and have clarity.
You use the word culture in there. Some years ago, I wrote a book called Culture Catalyst. Culture Catalyst. It's about organizational culture, and uh, people say to me now, because when you write a book, people think like you know what you're talking about. No, I just wrote a book. I don't know anything about it. I just wrote a book. So there it is, and people say, "Well, I'm building culture." You build cultures not by a program, not by a big something something. You build culture, small things, on a daily basis. uh, your decisions create culture. How you say hello to somebody creates culture. How you acknowledge somebody's work creates culture. Who you promote, who you demote, who you stagnate, who you terminate determines culture. It's all in those small ways. But you applied that question, Natalie, to what happens during times of tension, disagreement. I am discovering more and more that during those times, the thing that's helping me the most is curiosity. I want to be curious. So let's just say you and I are talking and we are totally on opposite ends of it. It will be helpful instead of me digging down deeper and trying to find three more arguments to put your argument to shame. I want to say, Natalie, tell me a little bit more about that. That's an interesting thought you have, Natalie. Tell me how you got to that conclusion. Uh, I'm wondering if you could maybe say it another way. I'm sure I'm misunderstanding what you're saying. Help me understand it from another way. Curiosity, just be curious about it, because what I found is the more curious I am, two things happen. Number one, I really do start seeing their point of view and value in that point of view, not just seeing it, but valuing it. The second thing that happens is I am respecting and honoring that person. Because so often when we disagree with somebody, they feel dishonored and disrespected. I want to be able to disagree with you, and yet you feel like, something. Uh, Sam did not try to put me down. Sam heard me out. He asked me interesting questions. I was able to say more to him than less. He was a listening audience. He was actually interested in what I had to say. In fact, you know something? He changed his mind on a couple of things. That's, I think what that does is allows me, without patronizing somebody. Now, we've all been patronized, right? So without patronizing somebody, I want to be curious. Say, Natalie, tell me more about that. That's an interesting point of view. How did you get there? Wow. uh, you know you're saying it, I think I'm getting it. Can you say it another way?
Wow. That is a underrated superpower, curiosity, and I love that what it requires is us to take a little bit more time, slow down a little bit, and actually, like you said, be able to lean into thinking in the way that the other person is thinking so that we can go more towards, creating that collaboration, and that's what I love about curiosity is it often leads to really amazing collaboration if we'll let it. Um, so let's talk about boldness and humility. I mean, I think that sometimes for believers, especially leaders in business, they're not sure these two words can go together. I think they can. But how can leaders embody both when they're making hard decisions, when they're thinking through the lens of maybe they need to let somebody go, or maybe they need to make a big change in a department and they have to lead with both the boldness to make that change, but then the humility to walk through that process?
Humility to know that I don't know. I am what I call consciously incompetent. I know that I don't know. So humility says, because I am not a know it all, hopefully, that I can invite other voices into this conversation. So, humility to seek counsel, humility to seek other perspectives, humility to seek advice. Humility says none of us is as good as all of us. So, humility is that component of it. However, boldness is to take all the advice, wisdom, understanding you've received, and finally make a decision. And the way you make that decision is now you're making an informed decision. No decision I've ever made has been a perfect decision. Yeah, I just have to remind myself, I have not made a perfect decision, because in every decision there is the seeds of something could go wrong, something can go awry, something can go sideways, something can have a bad day, something can have a distinct failure, a dissonance, a disparity of some nature. So, knowing that about me, I have lived long enough to say I need other voices in my life, but I also, at the end of the day, have to collate and coordinate all those voices, not to find an appeasing voice, not to find a voice that tries to make everyone happy, but the right voice, because other people spoke into my life. And that is what I mean by humility and boldness. Humility to include voices, and then boldness to make the choice when you have to make the choice.
Yeah. Wow, that there's so much I think in there to unpack for us as we think about that. That's so powerful, the way that you shared that with us. I wanna the last question I wanna ask you because we're gonna get to your new project as well, which I'm really excited to talk to you about. Last question I wanna ask you on this is, you know, in your article, you mentioned 1 Corinthians 12, which speaks to honoring every part of the body. And I want to specifically speak to business leaders and them thinking about how to honor people that are behind the scenes. I mean, if you think about a lot of our, out in front leaders, there's so many people behind the scenes that make it happen. I know it's true for you. I know it's true for me in my own life. I know it's true for Pastor Colleen. But like, how do you honor people that are behind the scenes in a way that um, will help them understand how important they are to the bigger picture of what they're doing? I feel like this is something that is almost underrated when we think about the teams that make things happen and almost never get the applause for that.
Oh, wow. First of all of us, everyone listening to me, 1000% of people listening to me have been those people behind the scenes before we got to the scene. So I have two things that are percolating in my head. One is just think back to when you were five doors behind whatever the action was. You were never mentioned, you were never acknowledged. In fact, nobody knew you were alive. Uh, and at that time, how would you have wanted to be treated? Number one, the dignity that goes with it. The second thing is we only honor those we value. So I'll give you a case in point. Just think of this one. Of all the people who are behind the scenes, if they were to go on strike tomorrow, what are you doing? What, I mean, I can tell you this much: you and I, Natalie, would not be on this podcast.
We're in trouble.
Yeah, trouble. Yeah, somebody helped with the technology. Somebody set up our studio. Somebody sent out the communication. Somebody coordinated the date and the time. uh, s- you know s- and for this to get to the listeners, there'll be a whole lot of somebodies who will have to put the word out there and the link out there, and however you do that. And now when you talk about a digital presence, even more behind the scenes people are there. So this is what I have done all my life. Well, I shouldn't say all my life. The last 30 years of my life is I make a note of all the people who touched my life for that moment. Uh, this week earlier, I was in Houston speaking to 1,000 pastors at a conference. Yeah, it was a fairly significant conference. But somebody set me up on the calendar. Somebody said yes. Somebody told me what it was going to be about. Somebody arranged for my flight. Somebody picked me up at the airport. Somebody checked me into my hotel. Somebody picked me up from the hotel and took me to the venue. Somebody had a bottle of water ready for me. Somebody asked me which kind of microphone I would like to use. Somebody wanted to get my slides together. Somebody had the lighting. Somebody had the sound system. Somebody. So what I do now is, if possible, it's not always possible, but if possible, I try to get their names at least. And I will send a text message after that saying, "Hey, Natalie, these are the five people that really, really helped me to get on the platform and get off the platform and do it right. Will you just please copy this message and send it on to them? I don't have their numbers, but would you do that for me?" And then I will put a gracious text over there, meaning every word of it. And then it goes up. I just did that yesterday. Mhm. So I think we honor only those people we value. And once you understand, you would not be able to earn your next dollar without those people. Wow.
Yeah, changes the perspective on everything. Um, well, speaking of perspective and honor, I'm excited about your upcoming project that you're gonna share with us. This has been a really cool project. I've been seeing the splash out there, but I'd love for you to share your brand new book that you just released.
Yeah. So years ago, I got known for my book called Who's Holding Your Ladder, in which I helped churches and business leaders to select and develop their leaders. 3 weeks ago, this book came out. It's simply called How to Hold Your Pastor's Ladder. This is also good for businesses. and business leaders, because business leaders, you did not come with a user manual. Nobody knows what you go through. And pastors, you did not come with a user manual either. Nobody knows what you go through. And then people say, well, people don't understand my life. How can they understand your life? Because so much of your life cannot be understood or even explained, because you live in such a significant way that it's hard to say that. And even if you were to say those things, they'll be about yourself. That's kind of awkward. So what I did in this book is unpack the life of a leader, a business leader and a pastor, to your people who now say, wow, I didn't know she went through that. I didn't know her life was this complicated. I didn't know she carries these kind of burdens. I did not know that she struggles with these things. And then once they understand you, they can help you. Stephen Covey said, understand to be understood. So if you want to be understood as a leader, this book is for you. And you can get it very easily at yourpastorsladder.com. Yourpastorsladder.com. It's hardcover. I also have, in case you're interested, I've got master classes that go along with it, 4 of them. I have a study guide that goes along with it. I had a Avail resources that go along with it. So, yep, this is my attempt of helping you help your people to understand you and help you better. Yourpastorsleader.com.
Well, what I'm excited first of all, this is a beautifully designed book. Like, I was just looking at the cover and I'm like, it looks so amazing, and I love the hardback, that you guys produce. It just makes for, something you can put out on the coffee table. But then I get really excited about helping people understand a little bit further into the world of ministry, which oftentimes, if you haven't lived in that world, it's really hard to understand some of the things that go on. What do pastors deal with every week? Everyone thinks they just get up and preach once a week, but there's so much more that goes in behind the scenes in leadership, and even the things they have to deal with that no one ever knows about. And so, what I appreciate about this book is I don't know of a book out there like this, that does it from the perspective that you're coming from. And so, I know that you were just talking to hundreds or thousands of pastors about this. And so, what do you feel like, some of the things that they're saying are, or some of the ways that it's already helped them?
So this has been out for 3 weeks, and the feedback I'm getting is a leader reads the book and says, wow, I need my people to know this. And so they're buying it by the boxes. If they're, 20 in a box is how it comes. So they're buying it by the boxes. So if you go to mypastorsladder.com, all the avenues are there, but that is how people are buying it. I'm saying things that the leader cannot say. I'm taking the awkwardness factor out. I'm pretty straight up about it. And I said, this is what your leader goes through. So before you get all talked and get yourself in a ward, understand their day is like this. And here are things they cannot tell you. That they just cannot tell you. But this is what they're going through. This is what they carry. This is what they carry emotionally, relationally, physically, financially, family wise. And once you know that, see, once you value, then you can honor. I'm creating the value proposition for the leaders with things they cannot say about themselves.
I think this is going to be a powerful, powerful book for people to pick up and read. We will have the link in the show notes. So head over to the show notes and check this book out. And we would love for you to just get yourself a copy. Maybe you get a few copies for your small group, for your pastor. This is something really incredible, I think, to go through and actually have some discussion around, because I think that it's going to spark ideas. And we were talking earlier about, how do you honor people that are behind the scenes? And even though, yes, your pastor is up preaching, they do so much behind the scenes that we have no clue about. And so I think this would be a really incredible book to get and even talk about within a small group. Wow. Any other final thoughts for us today? This has been so incredible. It went way too fast.
I, I do have one, and that is I just want to say thank you to Pastor Colleen Rouse for having the vision. And Natalie, you're such an amazing, you're natural.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, you surely are. You make it easy. And I just want to say thank you for the work you're doing in such a needy area that has been overlooked for so long. And ladies, you make it happen in my life and as I look around me. So keep leading, ladies, in every way possible.
Thank you, Dr. Sam Chan. It's always a joy and a pleasure to have you with us. And ladies, I want to ask you a question. Have you had a chance to get into community? If not, I want you to head over to thrivetoday.com to learn more. You can be a part of incredible coaching calls, a quarterly box that's curated and sent to your door, and quarterly articles like these. I can't wait for you to dive in and listen to all that is available to you over at thrivetoday.com. So head over there. You were not meant to lead alone. You were made to rise, you were made to lead, and you were made to thrive. We'll see you next time.